Hey Beth, did you know all of your favorite podcasts, including Be There in 5, are on Amazon Music? We all know finding the best listening platform can be a challenge, but Amazon Music does it right. They make the process seamless from start to finish. You can even listen on any ALEXA powered devices you have. All you have to do is say, ALEXA, play the podcast Be There in 5 on Amazon Music. Or if you're listening on your phone, just download the Amazon Music app, search for Be There in 5, and click follow. Enjoy the episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Be There in 5 podcast. I'm Kate Kennedy, your host. Happy Halloween, if you're listening on Halloween. Sorry for the suggestive title, but it's kind of an inside joke of podcast lore. And per podcast lore, actually today what I did, so I actually took this week off. There aren't any ads in the rest of this episode. My parents are in town. But sometimes I feel like I have such a deep back cat. I've roughly... We're on the 8th year of Be There in 5. I have so many episodes. They're all so long. There's a combination of stuff, like segments that are more evergreen, like wedged in between current events I wouldn't want to listen to again. Like one of these episodes, it was like 20 minutes of me talking about this breaking news story. I don't know if you've heard of about Elizabeth Holmes. Like it's hard to re-air old episodes because like to rehear someone talking about Theranos like it's 2018, it's deeply like uninteresting, right? But I find in these episodes, there are like pockets of what I think are like kind of fun, nostalgic snorkels or kind of like Be There in 5 classic rants. And I think I'm going to start using my back catalog a bit more, not to replace new content, but you know how now I do 3 episodes a month? Like on that, like the off weeks, like I should just be, I don't know, sharing some older stuff or like doing mashups. I mean, Lord knows I could use more listeners, but also just to celebrate where we've been. Because I recently was, I actually would love to take some classic episodes or the more popular ones and do like director's cuts because I've tried to listen to some of them recently to kind of get organized about what I want to do with my back catalog. And I created a rule long ago that I can't listen to old episodes once I put it out because I did that earlier on in my career and I would just go on these deleting sprees. That's why there's all these missing episodes because I was like, things just feel so objectively embarrassing once I've had some distance from them. But some of it's fun. There's some good stuff back there that I forget about. And I feel like it's also hard to like navigate through the catalog or tell people where to start. And I don't know, it's a lot of episodes. I'm trying to like figure out some way to organize it, but also to re-air some segments just for fun when otherwise I just wouldn't be uploading anything. If you guys want the company, and maybe it's because I'm the host, I don't remember any of it and I don't re-listen. I hope it doesn't feel redundant to you, but literally I don't remember saying any of this. And what's funny is I crowdsourced like, why do you love fall? Why do millennials love fall? Like those of you with, I don't know, if you're Gen Z or if you have Gen Alpha kids or whatever, like, do you feel this obsession? Because it's kind of something we've historically been like a bit trolled for, you know, kind of the PSL of it all. And I was like, weird that I haven't done an episode about this, but like I kind of have twice. I just forget because it's just so much content that like, yeah. It's hard to remember to trace my steps sometimes. Anyways, this is a mashup of 4 Halloween-related segments from episodes across the past 7-ish years. The episodes were called Make Your Christian Brothers Autumnal, Ween Pics, Spooky Snorkel, and Wicked Witch of the Midwest. So 2 of them are more recent, 2 of them are old. Ween Pics has nothing to do with Halloween, but it's just such a classic episode where I told the Clary the Muffin story. So it felt like a classic worth throwing in here. And I wanted to call it Ween Clips because why not? So yeah, this episode is a mashup of 4 Halloween or fall themed Be There in 5 episodes from years past that I thought were kind of fun to revisit. If you wanted something to listen to this weekend that's on theme, I thought it would be kind of fun to do like some themed curated episodes. So I hope you like it. There might be some overlap or some redundancy. And it's interesting because like the first one, Make Your Christian Brothers Autumnal, it was because I went to like an influencer pop-up and felt like I under-delivered in terms of taking cozy fall photos. And it's me also revisiting this concept called Foliage, F-A-U-X, where I used to go crazy because influencers were photoshopping Mother Nature like they used to Photoshop their bodies. But now, isn't that like a hilarious thing to care about or be annoyed about with AI? Like, my God, I'm seeing all these dreamy Ralph Lauren Christmas photos of the coziest of homes. And I think they're literally all AI and I can't tell a difference. And I mean, I know AI is a threat to many things, you know, the environment, our intellect, the job market, the future as we know it. But my God, if it isn't irritating me profoundly that I cannot tell if a cozy space is or is not actually attainable by non-artificial intelligence. But anyway, so yeah, the first one's like Foliage, but it's also, I think, it was 2022. So I mentioned that like I had heard the song title Vigilante Ship, but hadn't heard the song yet, which is just kind of funny. I can also hear in myself talking how stressed I am about the passage of time because I think this was I think right before my second IVF cycle, and I was just feeling very stressed about getting older and time passing, I guess. But also, I think that I was doing a final edit of One in a Millennial, and some of the topics I'm kind of like workshopping here is like me talking about pumpkin spice lattes not being basic from the Pumpkin Spice Girl chapter. I also think there's in one of these episodes, I'm kind of workshopping the concept that would become popular girl handwriting or already had. I'm not really sure. But it's interesting listening back because I'm like, oh, I was writing my book and I'm experimenting with that line. So yeah, then Ween Pics is the next one, which I mentioned earlier, is not about Halloween at all, but about my friend Hannah making a Facebook album title called Ween Pics. But that episode not only launched the sorority era, that episode also launched, I think, like Visco Girl Wash Your Face, which was a really big episode at the time. I'll do a director's cut of eventually that and Bath and Body Jerks, which are two that I think a lot of you found me from. But yeah, that ended up being a really pivotal episode of me just sharing stories of my sorority sisters and I at my friend Jasmine's bachelorette party, like going through old emails from Kappa Delta. And I just thought I'd throw that in for good measure and because the title's too good. Then I think I go into, Spooky Snorkel, which is, after the book came out, but I wanted to read because I did so much research on like occult practices and like witchy things girls did at sleepovers. And I wanted to talk about it there. And then also there's a segment from Wicked Witch of the Midwest, which was last year, that I actually think is really interesting that I forgot about, but I think is really great context to carry forward, just in terms of understanding the context of witches in the, broader realm of like patriarchal oppression throughout history and how gals with a pointy hat and a broomstick were just, brew maids trying to make a buck. Like witches were actually wearing pointy hats because they were like alewives and they were often like single and entrepreneurs and like trying to make money. So they wore tall hats to stand out in crowds and had cauldrons because they were literally brewers and used broomsticks as their trade signs. But that symbol became like what we know as the witch stereotype today of something like completely different. And really male brewers just wanted to eliminate female brewing competition. And so they're like, these bitches are witches. And it's like, what? So anyways, I think there's a couple that are like wistful, nostalgic, fun about fall. Ween Pics is just fun sorority, be there in 5 classic episode. Wicked Witch of the Midwest. It was a segment I think I was workshopping called Beth Turn Civ. That didn't last. I can't imagine why, but regardless, I just thought this might be a little bit fun, a fun mashup, a monster mashup. IDK. That song sucks. Why don't we have other Halloween songs, guys? I don't know, but yeah, I hope everybody has fun tonight. Be safe. Watch out for those obvious razor blades and apples. We all know every neighbor's putting in produce that people like. Who's taking produce from their neighbors? Lastly, I just want to extend my deepest thoughts, prayers to those of you out there, 36 minutes deep into YouTube tutorials about how to do an inside-out Dutch singular French braid like Rumi from K-pop Demon Hunters. I applaud your bravery. I'm wishing you the best of luck with the many bumps. And I hope this episode keeps you company along that journey. This first one is called Make Your Christian Brothers Autumnal from fall of 2022. I'll come in from the beyond and tell you what episode, just so you know we've transitioned episodes. Maybe I'll use a beep. Yeah, here you go. All right, enjoy.
I was so excited because I got invited to this like fall pumpkin themed autumnal pop-up thing that's been around for a few years now. And I was really excited because do you guys remember when I used to obsess over those foliage photos and I spell that FAUXLIAGE. It was this trend that was happening when like kind of like Hygge Scandinavian culture of coziness was, taking over the States. And I discovered in like 2018, and that's the same time I very late discovered KJP. Look up on Instagram at KJP to see what I'm talking about. And we had an issue on our hands where people moved on from photoshopping their bodies and moved on to full-on photoshopping Mother Nature. And people would post photos where they would pretend to be surrounded by stunning, lush, Vermont-esque foliage, like leaves. But then as one does, I'd go on the foliage tracking apps or maps, and there was ne'er an orange or red or yellow leaf in sight. And they were faking the sensation of fall coziness. And it would drive me nuts. That's why I called it FAUX-liage. They'd be posing by a giant mug. They'd be sitting amongst their gourd collection. Many played fast and loose with open-air candles near dry brush, as if their flammable fast fashions weren't already making them at risk for spontaneous human combustion. These photos were like stunning, and I wanted to be inside of them. Like the photos would have these twinkle lights that I later realized are often fake and you can mimic on PixArt. They would have like Hocus Pocus on the TV screen, but just the title scene for some reason. And, you know, when you're alone, having an existential crisis amidst a deep scroll in the cold blue light of your iPhone in a non-decorated city apartment with so little access to grass, where your young son Tugboat has to play hopscotch with cigarette butts and unidentifiable liquids outside on the concrete, you're like, oh man, I want to be that cozy. Why don't I have a bicycle leaning against a wall indoors? Why doesn't my, Tuesday, an average day of the week, represent a level of candlelit ambiance of like Monica proposing to Chandler? Or the Jesse and the Rivers Forever video. I want pillar candles and I want them recklessly placed near fabrics. Is that too much to ask? I don't know, guys. I feel like it was getting to a point where I wasn't understanding where these people were and why the colors seemed more brilliant, why the seasons changed faster than where I was. I was getting angry at like my local barista for phoning in my latte art. All of a sudden, everyone had a fireplace, and everything I looked at in my apartment felt uninspired and felt like sandpaper in the absence of like a shearling texture. The more of that content I consumed, the more I got on my feed, and suddenly it was oppressive to be reading a book without an entire tray of fresh baked buns. Or having a top not so artfully messy, it's like a tiny fashion hat. I just feel like there was also this thing with like winter, similarly simulated winter photos, and there would be like these adult forts that looked like a dream, and like I would take like every cushion and spare throw pillow and put it on my floor like they did, so I could like watch Hocus Pocus or whatever in a human nest of residual bedding. But it looked insane. It just like it looked like I went rogue, making a childhood fort after my parents left the house. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't giving fresh baked almond croissants. It was giving like, I left you money for pizza. It was like so stupid. And Greg was like, what are you doing? I honestly went crazy. I think I was like struggling a bit in my life and career, and I really wanted to feel that sort of calm and coziness I long for. And I don't know. It's like with influencers, it's just a funny subset of comparison. Like it's already easy to compare our lifestyles, our clothes, my face, my body, my home, my financial situation to influencers. But now I'm also comparing my level of achievable coziness to influencers. And at a point, there was like this trend of influencers kind of, I don't know, like acquiring the je ne sais quoi of autumnal magic and co-opting it for engagement by posting like photos of these kind of funny seasonal thirst traps. And I say thirst traps, I don't mean like anything sexy, like make your Christian brothers stumble. It wasn't like, you couldn't even see their face or body half the time. It was like making me like long for fall, making me thirsty for fall. It's just like making your Christian brothers autumnal. It's like that nostalgic, sexy, that palpable, like maybe I'll get to hold hands with a boy tonight on a haunted hayride type of thing. You know what I mean? And I just don't think there's any way you could look at those things and not want to uncharacteristically build a habitat in a Ray-Dun canvas tote that says it's fall, y'all. And worse, fall's like become a source of ridicule where people love to pumpkin shame. And I just think, okay, I have a hypothesis that this is like an attachment to fall is uniquely millennial. And I'm curious to get your feedback on if you agree, because I can't quite put my finger on it, but like, I mean, in general, as millennials, our behavior is mocked left and right. And one of the things we're trolled for is like loving fall, which I think is so odd. It's a season. There's only 4 of them. And you can't win. Like, I don't know. I part of me thinks that people just don't even recognize their own internalized barstool misogyny that wants to strip women of their intellect and multitudes by calling women basic if you like a PSL and wear an Ugg boot and a blanket scarf. God forbid we keep our necks warm while you come for ours. Like, it's so stupid when people make fun of people for liking fall and drinking pumpkin spice lattes. Who cares? Just because it's common doesn't mean it's wrong, bad, or you lack taste. You actually can recognize good taste because it's delicious, and I'm not impressed that you like your coffee black. It's just like, that's not interesting to me. And I think that fall is a uniquely special time for millennials. And I'm curious if any of my younger listeners that are in Gen Z feel like fall is special for them. Because as I've told you before on like the episode Millennial and stuff, like we grew up in a simpler, like many of us, especially older skewing millennials, which I know a lot of you are, or Gen X, like we grew up in a simpler time. We almost like, I don't know what's, and again, keep in mind, I'm a white girl from middle-class suburbia. Like I'm not speaking for everybody's experience, but like the standard kind of brilliantly ordinary suburban experience I had, like, I don't know, I almost long for it in a sense. And I think we grew up in a time where, in an era of like more naive safety and suburban freedom, and many of us could wander outside or walk to school or the bus stop. And I know kids still do that, but I don't know if it's any different, where like I spent a lot of time like outside in the fall, like wandering around my neighborhood, walking to and from school, bike riding to friends' houses. Like fall makes me connect with this younger version of myself that wasn't yet burdened by like the passage of time. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I think the changing of seasons, you know, when you're young and you start to notice on your same walk home or to the bus stop or friend's house, the things you do every day, you see the same stuff every day, and you notice the leaves slowly start to change. You start needing a light jacket. You know, fall's like a sensory experience. And I'm curious if younger listeners have like a disproportionate fondness as millennials do. And maybe we do because the world changed so drastically, but we were once a part of the one we once knew that represented a simpler time that maybe the seasons created a sensory experience for, that we attached to an untethered version of ourselves that was so deeply present in our surroundings because they didn't mean anything other than what they were. I said this on Instagram the other week. Something along the lines of like, I think the reason somebody said in a question box, like, oh, I'm so annoyed people are already decorating for fall and it's like early September. And I think, and I genuinely understand both sides. Like, I think the reason people rage about decorating too early is because the older you get, the passage of time becomes stressful. It represents like a cozy seasonal change, yes, but it also represents time slipping away. And it means you and everyone around you are getting older. If, you know, for those in your child rearing years, the passage of time can feel like a closing gate with every year that passes just to seal our fate. And when it's August and people start to be more like pumpkin for it, I don't blame them, but I do feel anxious, but I would never shame a pumpkin queen, a pump kindred spirit, if you will. I would never say your cheer doesn't belong here, ma'am. Shove it. Like, no. The reason it gives me anxiety is because now my love for the changing atmosphere and the crisp air of fall and the decor is like at odds with my disdain for the passage of time. And I struggle to reconcile looking forward to things. But to quote nothing new, it's like you can feel time moving. And these visuals like represent that and give you moments of like, oh my God, we're already in Q3? Like, Jesus. I just started remembering to put 2022 on my checks, you know, because I write checks and it's 1998. When you're a kid, like the changing seasons represent the opposite. Like you're excited to grow up, to get closer to Halloween and then closer to Thanksgiving and then closer to Christmas, whether you celebrate it or not, just for like the winter break of it all, for being off school. Like September through December is one back-to-back thrill ride of stringing your days between glimpses of joy and anticipation. And I think about starting the school year, I don't know, even like getting school supplies, back to school clothing, which what a crock it was that you can't wear your back to school clothing till school starts. That was always frustrating. But I feel like, are being obsessed with school supplies a millennial thing? You guys know that I'm very into pen culture. I mean, I used to cry at a Walmart if my folders didn't have a unicorn eating an ice cream sundae next to penguins riding a rainbow with like leaping dolphins in the distance. And one of those Lisa Frank folders, my God, endless plot holes representing both land and sea animals, and sometimes a very out-of-place golden retriever, but they were stunning. But unfortunately, like 3x the price of the private label brand, which as an adult I understand, but as a child, it felt dire if my pencil case didn't have like an otter on a surfboard. My God, spiral notebooks. I know I've told you guys before I have hot takes about school supplies. Like I think Rose Art is the android of coloring utensils. The pigment retention is horrifying. And I just get your kid the Crayolas. I'm not trying to be pretentious. I didn't grow up with like FU Power Wheel money, but my parents did get me the Crayolas, and it made a difference for my artistry that I've carried into my career today. But I do remember a few conversations where my mom tried to cheap out on the old spiral notebooks. And listen, like I'm the third child, I'm the youngest. My mom was a well-oiled back-to-school shopping machine by the time I came around. But I was a stickler for the supply list. And, you know, I'm not a dummy. I knew when there was some ripped out pages and it was a used notebook that one of my siblings had. I was like, Mom, I'm not a baby anymore. They said college ruled, not wide ruled. I can't be seen with a Mead notebook and a sea of 5 stars. There's a quality difference. It felt crazy to be out here ink bleeding out, like some kind of martyr on account of rollback pricing. The pages were thin, the ink would bleed, and I don't know. I needed a 5-subject notebook, and the only in my memory did the 5-star notebooks have the pocket dividers that exuded this sort of sophistication like an adolescent pad folio. I felt like $1 million with a 5-subject notebook. Be there in 5 subjects. And I think in general, too, it was like nice to get ahead of the number 2 pencil anxiety we were indoctrinated with, like thinking your entire future hinges upon, and you face imminent destruction should you accidentally fill in a Scantron with a number 1 pencil. What the fuck is a number 1 pencil? It's a conspiracy theory, honestly. I used to secretly fill in some bubbles with a mechanical pencil because I loved a mechanical pencil to see if it worked, and it did. I don't know what they're talking about. Honestly, I just think we need to deep dive the number 2 pencil industry. I think that they have a monopoly. But I liked getting the latest and greatest in mechanical pencil technology because I liked the little cute lead cases, like the little lead cartridges. It felt like ammunition for a prolific doodler to be locked and loaded. When I'd practice like 5-point stars and signing my name and practice my drop caps and my really stick figure ease like the popular girls. I spent a lot of time perfecting my popular girl handwriting, as you know. I used to like cap erasers, but mostly for chewing. They never really worked for erasing. There was a time too where the world tried to trick us into erasable ink, and it was a mess. What a crazy time. Is anybody as excited about school supplies? I don't know what I'm talking about. I feel like I never outgrew like my Ticonderoga pencil calluses on my fingers. And do you remember when you first start writing and you have to use those like triangular neon colored or the really like squishy ribbed pencil grips? Again, to reference Taylor Swift for the millionth time, she clearly missed the memo on pencil grips. If you've ever seen how that girl holds a writing utensil, my God, she holds it between like her middle and ring fingers. It's so odd. That is vigilante shit. The song she announced the title of last night, which great song title. Can't wait to hear more. But watching Taylor Swift write something by hand, it's like vigilante shit. Like a good deed is being done, writing us the music that has beautifully served as our lives soundtrack, but is also committing an actual crime holding a pencil in between the wrong fingers. It looks insane. I don't know if I really had a point. Wow, I really veered off course. We're 20 minutes in. What was I saying? Anyway, I guess what I wanted to ask you, millennials, is do you feel like your fall fondness has less to do with like something you enjoy as an adult and more so chasing a feeling of coziness, warmth, and anticipation that you can't quite describe, that's more reminiscent of childhood than anything? Like when you think about school supplies and meeting your new classmates and back to school shopping and buying more erasers to chew on at a Scholastic book fair. Because, I mean, have we talked about these before? Remember how people used to get, like, when the books would actually come in, they would get a huge-ass stack of these gorgeous, crisp, brand-new books with a Post-it with their name on it. And I was like, damn. It was such a flex. It was such a flex. I was such a hype beast for new books. I think most, like, normal people, like, your parents use the Scholastic book fair as an opportunity to teach you about markup. Whether you're just classic book fair, like a Borders Books and Music. I just remember my mom talking about how marked up the books were. And at the time, it just seemed very glamorous to have brand new, fresh, crisp books. And then like you see somebody's stack arrive with a Post-it on it. And you're like looking down at your used copy of Bunnicula. And it's so worn, so weathered. And I don't know. Rent the Runway for books is a bummer. Which is, I guess, a weird thing to say because technically libraries are the rental model. And I guess Rent the Runway is the library of dresses. But you know what I mean? It feels different when it's yours. But aside from that, like you walk home, the crisp air of fall, you smell the people burning their fireplaces and see the leaves changing and it gets darker earlier and the jack-o'-lanterns light your way home. And you want time to move forward quickly because you look forward to pumpkin patches and hay rides and eating pumpkin seeds and drinking cider and picking apples or picking out a costume. Like, why wouldn't you look forward to an occasion where you had parties at school and best of all, like going around to strangers' houses, feeling safe doing so, trick-or-treating? And they give you mounds of all of the food you weren't normally allowed to eat, but for some reason on that day, it was an exception. You were allowed to just gorge yourself with candy. I feel like mounds is a weird word because I hate mounds, and I mean, that is the exception. I don't want mounds. I don't want Almond Joys. I don't want your circus peanuts. I'm not a clown. But, I mean, going to the rich people's houses hoping for a full-size candy bar, are you kidding? And, like, when the costumes and pumpkin carving is over and the candy is eaten, it's okay because you just look forward to having time off from school for Thanksgiving. And then your adrenaline just builds and builds as time passes as you work toward what felt like a month-long sabbatical with winter break, where, like the twinkle lights, your days are strung together with warm fires and stockings lined up by the chimney with care, oranges and bowls, acupunctured with those sharp chive things. It's like this sort of Christmas potpourri, along with the smell of Christmas trees and togetherness. And if you're me as a child, you were shallow as hell and your presence is unmatched when you're nearing a time when you'll be getting presents. And even when that's over, you look forward to maybe a surprise snow day or spring break and then summer break. And I'll stop now, but you get what I mean? Like the passage of time once represented an endless thrill ride of missing school, getting presents, doing fun things you weren't usually allowed to do. And you had increments of special occasions alongside growing up that gave you more access to things that made the changing of seasons an utter thrill. If you grew up in a place with seasons. And what once served as like mile markers of sensory memories of joy and anticipation now feel like a representation of all of the milestones you've yet to hit. And now I sometimes resent the passage of time and the decor that corresponds with the season because it represents all the things I haven't done, a life I haven't lived, a kid I have yet to have, and a place my career could be but isn't. So yeah, sorry if we want to make our Christian brothers autumnal and appropriately have them fall for this season because we chase vignettes that resemble how we once felt, untethered, unbothered, unburdened by the passage of time. My phone's ringing, but I don't even want to get it because I'm on a roll. But I have to because somebody from OfferUp is delivering me a coffee table because I do have house guests this weekend. BRB. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, sometimes I get embarrassed with how obsessed I am with nostalgia because it's not like I can't accept my life now and miss the good old days in a way that I want to actually time travel like every Rachel McAdams movie she's ever been in. I just miss what the time represents in more of like an emotional, existential way that you pass a certain age and you don't realize that you once existed without a looming tension that even when you can't pinpoint this source of your looming anxiety, you're anxious because that probably means you've just forgotten why you're anxious. And I know those of you of the TikTok armchair persuasion are like, girl, that's an anxiety disorder. Like, I know, but still, I don't know. I just don't ever remember feeling that way. And fall's a magical time of year, and I think I'm forever chasing the safety and warmth and presence of being at an age where my senses are heightened and my anxiety was low, but my anticipation was the highest. When's the last time you were too excited to sleep? Like the old Disney World commercial. Like, I never feel that way. I'm always lying awake at the night, but because I pace like a ghost and the room is on fire, invisible smoke. And I just miss when my existence was utterly uncomplicated And I strung my days together between dreams of Space Maker pencil cases and haunted hayrides and full-size candy bar dreams and holiday warmth. And life was like a string of bright spots, not unlike the twinkle lights that cascade off of KJP's Jeep Wagoneer over his adult fort on a plaid blanket in a leaf pile, with a golden retriever and a charcuterie platter, and an outdoor viewing of The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is a movie that I like to think of as the alternate title to The Christmas Shoes. What a nightmarish ordeal before Christmas. And I guess the closest thing to what looks as sweetly sepia-toned as my memories are these photos influencers take. And I'm always like, where are they? What are they doing? Where have the leaves changed like that? On what planet does your dog sit next to a basket of fresh-baked bread and pastries? Mine steals chicken tenders out of my mouth. That's more my thing. That's a parenting issue. But I've been fascinated with these types of photos for years, and I finally had my chance. And I got invited to this pop-up in Chicago where they literally create an autumnal wonderland with countless backdrops that look exactly like the FAUX foliage of these Instagram photos. They're like pumpkin horse-drawn carriages, a house made of pumpkins, like spooky hocus-pocus potion shops. There's like axe throwing and fall carnival games and apple cider donuts. And it's like a pocket inside the city that, while gimmicky as hell, it does do the job of all the foliage-related accents you need to take a fall thirst trap. And it's funny because, like, it's really cute, and I think it's actually great for families, or it'd be fun for, like, early dates, or, girls who if you want to get cute pics of yourself, like, they did a good job, and I'm honored they invited me. I'm not trying to be, like, not like other girlsy or, like, paint myself as, like, some underdog, like, oh, I can't take a picture. I can take a cute picture. But the reason they want influencers at those events, like me, if you have, like, access to an audience, they want you to come to produce content. I wasn't getting paid. I'm not sure as hell not getting paid to talk about it now. I don't know if this is a flattering take, but, like, when I tell you this place had everything you could ever imagine for a KJP style setup to succeed with Fall Joy, and how I under-delivered so horribly. Like, I put on a cute, like, jacket from Able. I had on my straight leg non-skinny jeans. I had on my lug sole boots. I did my hair. I really thought I had all the trappings of a successful fall thirst trap. And Courtney took some pictures of me, like, holding a pumpkin, sitting on a wood fence. And, like, I don't know if I thought I was Coco Rocha, like, speed posing, but they were horrendous. And I'm not even being coy. Like, I thought I was smiling and being cute, and I went back and went through them. Even when we were there, I was like, oh, there's something cute. I don't need to take more. I have to say, I respect the hell out of influencers who are able to figure this out. Courtney probably took 100 photos. They are all deeply unusable. And just like my lug boots, I'm so clunky. That's my truth. And I threw away my shot. I did. I didn't get a shot. And I don't know why I told this story, but I guess two things. I continue to respect the hell out of influencer photo taking and posing, and just the general, and I don't mean this in a negative way, like semi-shamelessness that can go into these events and look cute enough for photos and take really great high quality photos that get the backdrop, that produce content for these places. Like, I take a photo I like of myself every 3 months, and watching people, like, strike a pose in these super elaborate outfits relative to the setting and not be embarrassed doing it, I'm like, honestly, good for you. That's your job. I think the influencers in the wild culture can be a bit troubling, because I know sometimes it's stupid and borderline dangerous and, impacts the presence of other people around you trying to enjoy something. But I also, like, get that that's their job in places that are, like, destinations, or that you travel to, or, businesses want promotion, and that's totally fair. But watching these people, it's both mesmerizing and, like, slightly dystopian, because you realize you're in a pocket of what's supposed to be this, like, fall fun that mimics the nostalgia I described, but it's entirely manufactured. And it's, like, a smidge sad. It's really cool that people want to go to those places and have fun, but it's a smidge sad if you go to those places just to take photos in front of fall backdrops to put on your Instagram to pretend that you're having fall fun when you didn't have fall fun. You went to a fall fun place to take pictures to look like you were having fall fun. And the whole phenomenon of cute fall photos came from the je ne sais quoi of a pumpkin patch or an apple orchard, and that feeling and the surroundings of like being amidst autumnal nature was like notable and unique and exciting enough to post about, especially when you get to be an adult and you get to go to a pumpkin patch and drink alcohol. What a good time. And I think when people started to post those back in the early Instagram days, since millennials love to fuck with some foliage, the engagement on those posts was high. So people were drawn to posting more of them and seeking out more fall environments. But now we're in like this dystopian society where we're manufacturing backdrops that represent the coziness we chase for wholesome reasons. That, to be fair, the photos exude, but like anything online, it's not at all what it actually seems. It's simulating a sensation that we've lost, making me feel further from it. Well, I appreciate being able to walk through a corn maze in a city and genuinely think it's cute that people go for more than just photos. It's kind of like one of those 29 rooms type things where it's really cool and beautiful and aesthetic and people work hard on it, but you look around and all people are doing is posing at every stop. And you wonder if they're even having fun. And I'm just like, maybe instead of wishing it was 1999, it's like, hey, remember when we went to stuff because it was so fun or beautiful that's why we took a pic? Not what, when we started going to stuff and forwent the fun and presence of sitting in something beautiful to only go for the pic. And I think I was spiraling a bit because walking in there was a separate line for influencers and there was like a written sign that said like influencers here on the left. And when I got there, I was behind this huge line of high schoolers and I had to like cut in front of them, like the douchey influencer I am. And I wanted to die. I just wanted to be like, follow your dreams, kids. Don't do what I do. Like the influencer line is like, join a STEM field. You don't want to be in this line. But I'm worried they're seeing like a microcosm where influencers are literally getting fast-tracked and prioritized in front of them. And what they're growing up as normal in their childhood is this aggressive level of documentation that is so hollow. And I don't know. I guess that's the way it goes, though. You're always a product of the time you grow up in, and theirs is probably magical in their own way. And I guess I followed hot girls in the same way. Like, hot girls received the same treatment on the left, getting fast-tracked through life, and I followed suit. I bought the tanning bed package. I took the ride. Anyway, you guys, I can't breathe. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. I don't even know that I cared. I just blacked out. If I'm honest, I haven't felt the same since that corn maze. I've been sneezing a lot. I think I'm allergic.
This next one, again, has very little to do with Halloween, but it's a classic was the origin point of like so many episodes and spinoffs with sororities, with Facebook albums and nostalgia. And it's just interesting where these things start in kind of like a passing conversation. Telling a story from a bachelorette party. I think I just didn't know that there was a lot of things here that would ultimately interest people. And it's kind of funny because I listened back to the segment. I'm like, I don't know if this is all that strong, but maybe it's just the starting point of where people were like related to just being called to standards board or something. I don't even know. But yeah, admittedly, it's tough for me to listen to this vintage of an episode and even like audio quality. It's interesting. But yeah, hope you enjoy this clip from an episode from the spring of 2019 called Ween Pics. I then woke up early and went to this bachelorette party, which was so much fun. It was with my college friends, a lot of my sorority sisters. It was so much fun. The best part was I have all of this like chapter listservs from my sorority, all of the emails for most of college. And at a time where email was kind of just becoming more of a thing. And I mean, we were like texting and stuff, but like we were just starting to put photos on Facebook, and we were, I got on Facebook in 2005. So this is, 2006 to 2009 was when I was in college. And it's kind of this very transitional phase where we go from like full analog kind of to full digital. We were sitting around at this bachelorette party reading back some of these emails, and they were just freaking hilarious because I don't know if people still do this, but back then there was this like narrative of, and it wasn't just us, it was like all of Panhellenic that like was obsessed with being classy. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to not be classy, but also the most classless thing you can do is call yourself classy. So when you're walking around campus wearing a shirt that's like, sorority, because class isn't just something you attend. It's like, it is. something you attend, and it's also something you really shouldn't call yourself because it's pretentious and you're suggesting that by being in this organization that maybe is like a barrier to entry due to cost or, you know, elitism, or some people are too socially awkward or whatever. There's like a lot of reasons you can't get in a sorority that might be hurtful to people in not being in one. Calling them, you know, classless is tough stuff and something I don't love, and a shirt that did not make the cut for the t-shirt quilt my mom made me. But like, everything we did was against this barometer of classiness. And, you know, I feel so grateful to have had friends in college that were not classy because it was more fun that way. I mean, we were like, we got good grades and we were nice people and we didn't hurt anybody. But like, did we dance on elevated surfaces on occasion? You betcha. Did we shotgun beers with the best of them? Sure. We had a great time. Are these things that people were proud to show our national chapter we were doing? In letters, not necessarily. So we learned, okay, we're not going to wear letters. And then, you know, a few pictures go up on Facebook. A girl's back on an elevated surface, maybe at a date party. Someone's making out in a corner wearing our team colors, but they aren't letters. And we're like, we're in the clear. And we get an email. It's like, no elevated surfaces. If one more person dances on elevated surfaces, you will be taken to standards board. And it was like, yikes. What? Like, when you join a sorority, I did not think that I had to dance at ground level. I didn't know that that was like a mandatory thing. Now, trust me, I'm very tall. I have a bigger bone structure. I, you know, was a cool 20 pounds heavier in college, given that there was a Chick-fil-A on campus. And I thought, you know, a personal pan pizza was an appetizer. So I wasn't ever thrilled to be up on the countertops, especially in an era where people were just like rapid fire paparazziing with Canon point and shoots the entire night's events, putting absolutely no editing work toward it and sticking a USB in their like huge ass Dell computer and uploading every single photo with reckless abandon, giving it a terrible album title and, you know, running off. And you're like, hello, detag, please. But like, nobody was emailing or texting or that like readily available. So you just kind of had to sit there and stew in this tagged photo. There wasn't an untagged feature at the time. Anyway, so I wasn't really, you know, always on the elevated surfaces. I can't really chug beers and like I don't really do well with liquor. So I was always like kind of tame, but I think I was more so tame because A, I'm a bit introverted, and B, all of the fun things people did like made them wild, like always made me sick. So it was kind of like I was forced to be less cool, but I was still like around. I was taking the pictures. I'm not going to sit on the bench when Freak a Leak is on. I have a pulse. But anyway, the emails were just like scathing about all of the things we were doing that weren't classy. And it enraged me at the time, and it enrages me now because it was like nobody was doing anything harmful. Like it really, compared to what we could have been doing and compared to other people on campus, we were so together. But when your sorority standards board comes after you, because you don't really understand how like the normal world works, and to you that's everything in your world at the age of 19, you're like convinced the FBI is coming after you for dancing on an elevated surface and like shotgunning a beer next to a beer can tower during a friendly game of flip cup, where there's just a lot of red Solo cups present and maybe some fraternity or sorority letters in the background that you were unaware of. It got uploaded to Facebook and wasn't detagged in time before standards saw it, sent you a scathing email, threatened your ability to stay in the chapter, and it's going to send you to standards board to fend for yourself. Well, if your sisters turn their back on you because they love you, but we're not getting taken to standards board because that shit is like the same thing as basically being investigated by the CIA as far as we were concerned. I was like, these people are normal people that now like I would be like, hey, sup, how are you? Like, we're fine. We're all people. But at the time, I literally thought they had like control over my life and future and like free will, and getting an email from them was truly terrifying. And I don't know if any of you guys experienced the same thing, and maybe other people in my sorority like weren't that scared of it. But if anything, it speaks to like, I don't know, my chapter like ran a tight ship and they did a good job, and they kept us out of trouble probably and kept us safe a lot of the time. And the one thing I will say I'm so freaking grateful for is that there was this thing that when we had would post photos of beer cans, if there was anybody underage in the photo, or like maybe anybody at all, they would comment on it and just put an X, and it meant you had to delete the photo. We used to get a kick out of this because like my roommate would like upload an album, and basically like it wouldn't be an individual like comments underneath the different photos that were next. It would just be like a comment wide an album wide comment that was just like a hard X. Like, can't, like, this entire thing gotta go. And it was like, at the time, the pictures are like the only way you like show people you're having fun. You're a good time gal. You make your high school boyfriend jealous. So people were upset when they had to delete them. But in retro, like, I am so freaking grateful that those pictures aren't out there. Like, we were never doing anything that bad, but it's like, who wants pictures of them like partying in college? They're not going to go on the wall. I'm not going to show my kids one day. I'm not going to put them in like a nice Shutterfly bound album. Like, I'm good. I got the memories locked and loaded in my head. I remember all of my awful, low cut Halloween costumes. I'm good. I just don't need them immortalized by the World Wide Web. And I am so grateful to my sorority for policing those so carefully, even though at the time it was annoying. But the other funny thing that about reading through these emails, well, I had two different types of emails that I was sending to people. It was like, hey girl, where should I meet up with you to pay the fine for not attending this event? Because like, what I still don't understand is that I was paying them, but that I was going to get fined to not go to things. Like, why should I pay you more money to go to things when technically I'm paying you, so I should be here at my leisure? Very strange. Didn't get it then, don't get it now. So I just didn't go to stuff. I kind of hoped I could skip the fines, but then I'd be too scared to have like a tense personal relationship with the person responsible for collecting them. So I just have a lot of emails of me being like, hey girl, no, I'm 6 months late on the fine for that event that we're doing so we can pretend like we're not just a drinking organization and we did participate in some philanthropy. Anyway, let me know when I can write you a check for $5. Like, I was cutting checks for nominal amounts of fees like it was nobody's business. But I had that FU Bev cart money from the golf course I worked on, so I guess I didn't really care. But the second type of email I wrote is, hey girl, I need a medium t-shirt, or I need a large t-shirt, or hey girl, are those fitted American Apparel t-shirts or regular t-shirts? Well, and if they're regular, are they ladies or are they unisex? Because that makes a difference. Because I forget who pointed this out, but it's like the funniest thing to me that I didn't even notice at the time. And it's like one of those things that you look back, you're like, yikes, but everybody was doing it and you didn't really think about it. But everybody in the sorority was so tiny that everybody always ordered smalls. And we had to get like 2 t-shirts a week for various like functions, whether it was for some philanthropy or some like, I don't know, social. And so they'd all be smalls, except for a few of us mediums and larges that were stragglers that, the line for the small table was like 65 deep. And then there was like 4 of us, picking our shirts out of the tiny pile of people that weren't, like tiny pocket girls. And so when they'd send out emails or in meetings, they'd be like, okay, just let us know who doesn't want a small. I always hated that. But like, I didn't think about it. So many things related to my image that really got skewed in college, and the tying it back to the sororities, like, does anybody not need a small? And they're like literally only being 3 of us. And it's like, a medium is small. Like, there's no shit. That's ridiculous. Like, but I don't know. We were just like cracking up at all my emails asking for a different size shirt. And then I like go back and forth and change my mind several times over. It was a real delight. But hands down, the best part is this email we uncovered. And I don't think she listens to this podcast. And she is such an awesome girl. And like, I'm not going to say her name. This girl in our sorority wrote an email that like goes down in history. That I'll read to you because it's so worth it. And it's nothing bad. It's just like it's just token sorority rage when you're trying to plan an event, but you like need to be studying and writing papers and everyone else is out like, playing beer pong with hairy rinse cups. And you are just like, why is nobody taking this thing seriously that I'm taking seriously? And she wrote this scathing email about muffins. And it's just like this is my sorority in a nutshell. Like, it was like half people that were really just there to have fun and half people that were there to like be in an upstanding national organization and to do philanthropic efforts and to like contribute to the campus. The latter is the better way to be. I fell more into the former. But again, it's been 10 years since this email. I think it's pretty funny and innocuous. I do want to leave you with these very important words, warning you of the perils of shared kitchens, of ignoring signage, of eating carbs, and of, subscribing to giant listservs where people reply all with reckless abandon at 1:30 in the morning. It was from February 2009. Subject line, absolutely, ... Unacceptable. I am sorry that this is going to the whole listserv. I have no idea who was in the house today or tonight, but whoever ate the blueberry muffins tonight or today owes myself and blank a huge apology. We have worked our butts off for this, and as I type this email, it is 1:30 a.m. I am making pigs in a blanket and setting up for tomorrow so I can go pick up more food at 8 a.m. from Kroger. Did I mention that I have a paper due in 12 hours that I have yet to start? I am upset and angry that someone ate the muffins. There are numerous signs in the kitchen. We all know what is going on tomorrow. It is inexcusable. I probably wouldn't be this upset if I wasn't so tired, but seriously, this was really awful for me to realize at 1:30 a.m. Name, signature, not a strong ending. You know, guys, I too am upset and angry that someone ate the muffins. I heard through the grapevine that my friend Claire ate the muffins, and I'm only saying that because she listens to this podcast and I know that's going to make her really mad. I really don't know who ate the muffins. Honestly, I didn't know anybody in my sorority ate carbs besides me. Otherwise, why was I eating all those personal pan pizzas alone? But, you know, I did not live in the house at the time, and I'm grateful for that because I think I would have been a strong contender. Like, I can just see somebody shouting down the hall being like, it was one of the mediums. But I think that... honestly, someone super drunk just came and like Buddy the Elfed their way, tore through sweets, shoveled shit in their mouth, and like, you know, ignored signage. Like, while I appreciate the defense being like there was ample signage in all caps, like if there's one thing that's not going to stop a drunk person from a nice treat out in the open, it's signage. I mean, what drunk person has ever looked at a sign and been like, I respect that? You know, broken toilet won't flush. I'm not going to pee in that. I mean, like, people who are drunk do whatever the hell they want. And I think my favorite part is we have worked our butts off for this. And as I type this email, it is 1:30 a.m. and I am making pigs in a blanket. So I'm just like, if you're gonna send a scathing email, make a cooler sounding food. It's like, I am slaving away over these ants on a log. I don't really know what would be a more interesting thing to be making, but it just seems like, you know, I don't know. Pop the crescent roll, cut them in half triangles, roll them up, put them in the oven. I don't know if my sympathy's there, but that's chill. You probably signed up to be a chair of this office. The other thing that's funny is that it kind of exemplifies my point of earlier about negotiating salaries and like switching jobs, how you have to make it about what you're uniquely adding, what value you're adding to this certain situation, and not what your personal situation is, because it becomes irrelevant and then the argument is kind of null and void. And that's where I think I got lost, is when, you know, I knew she was making pigs in a blanket. I'm sorry. But she said, did I mention that I have a paper due in 12 hours that I have yet to start? Like, that's your cross to bear. Like, that's when you lost me. I get that it's annoying that Claire ate the muffins. I'm just kidding. I don't know who ate the muffins. But, like, you should have started your paper earlier, or maybe not signed up for an office if you knew you had a paper due. And also, 12 hours. Are you kidding me? I'd be like, you know, listening to Jimmy Buffett, kicking my feet up, toes in the sand, drinking a margarita. I'd be like, I am on vacation until this paper's due in 3 hours, because that's when I started papers. I'm a big procrastinator, and I do my best work when I have literally no time, and I'm really playing touch and go with the upload speed when it's ultimately due. But it's just, you know, I guess what it entailed is this person had to go back to Kroger at 8 a.m. and buy more muffins, which, you know, is hard. What if they didn't have muffins? What if they, God forbid, only had cinnamon swirl? We all know blueberry is superior to chocolate chip swirl of any kind. I'm not always in the mood for a sweet breakfast dish. I need a little bit of fruit. I don't need a full chocolate situation. You know, what if they had to get donuts instead? I don't know if donuts are classy and fabulous, like Coco Chanel and all those signs that people hung up everywhere. It's really hard to say. But, you know, I just really think what this email taught me is that there's 3 types of people in this world. People who eat the muffins. who forego any signage, any concept of why one might want their food untampered with, and just drunkenly mull through any baked goods. Then there's people who are so organized, regimented, and who so cannot imagine not following rules that they write scathing emails about who ate the muffins. They're upset and angry that someone ate the muffins. And then there are people like me who just sit back and love every minute of these two people not getting along at all. And that's kind of what my 4 years in my sorority was like. A neutral party, watching people just really not understand each other and wondering how they all got in this same place that apparently had the same values, yet we were just all completely different people. And that's part of the joy. And it teaches you how to get along with people. It teaches you how to work under a common framework regardless, because even if you are a free adult, you're like still going to have to abide by your company's standards or values or whatever. There's a church. There's always going to be a subset of rules you might need to abide by, and you don't always have to rage against them like I did in college. And I think I learned to appreciate them eventually. But this is why I love Nextdoor. This is why I'm hopeful to get on a PTA chain later in life. Life is all about being involved enough that people don't think you're bailing, but not too involved that they expect you there. Because then you spread yourself thin enough to where you become a bit of a novelty. Then when you show up, people are like, oh, you're here, but they're not like, nice of you to show up. There's really a balance you have to play in a large group of people that tends to have a short fuse, where you can like be cool with everyone, but not too close to anyone. So you're held accountable for things like buying muffins. It's really the best way to live. And the thing is, without the muffin buyers and the muffin ragers, we couldn't live. People like me are too neutral to like run the earth. I'm not the ideal way to be, to like, you know, be a captain of industry, but I am the ideal way to be if you want to sit back, eat popcorn, and watch, you know, a bunch of moms rage on a PTA email chain. Like, what a dream, what a life. I love when people get angry about a theme party. I love when people are upset about what baked goods you have to bring. I love when people need to collect volunteers for some god awful school event, and you're like, I don't have time for this, and like, good on you. Especially if you go to a private school. Like, again, I'm your client. Figure out how to get the situation to run without me volunteering. I don't understand. I mean, like, youth soccer. Why do I got to cut the oranges? I mean, I don't know. It's like, can't there be somebody at the organization that does that if we're paying you to like let my kid play soccer? I'm going to be a great mother. Yikes. Please don't use this against me in the future, should, you know, people ever be questioning my moral compass. I love children. I love my nephews and my niece. I want children. But I also have a hard time thinking that I'm ever just going to magically like going to sports games or preparing small, bite-sized foods. Is that so crazy? I just don't think it's for everybody. And I think some people like it and the rest are just too scared to admit they don't. Anyway, my role in my sorority was called chaplain. And I do believe it was the person that was supposed to close the meetings with some sort of spiritual reminder. I was kind of like the in-house clergy member, which is a little bit weird. But like I said, I had like 1 foot in religion from church camps, but then like 1 foot in, you know, a more evolved freedom of thought I was kind of experiencing. And through being a part of another organization that felt restrictive, I felt called to push a very secular agenda. So while I was supposed to be going up and reading Bible verses, I'd read quotes by E.E. Cummings, Henry David Thoreau. I'd maybe throw in a Sarah Jessica Parker now and again, but just not say who the quote was by. I mean, you know, sometimes people just need to know that every girl is... What is it called? It's like maybe some girls just need to run free until they find someone just as wild to run with them. Like I probably said, Eleanor Roosevelt said, well-behaved women rarely make history. It's like somebody was like crying, standing on a chair, praying for the integrity of our chapter because somebody danced on an elevated surface again. And I'm like, hey girls, namaste, amen, etc. Women who behave rarely make history, just ahead. So keep on keeping on. Dance like nobody's watching. You're only as strong as the cocktails you drink, the friends you keep, and the tables you dance on. So live for the nights you'll never remember with friends you'll never forget. Basically, I was like a giant inspirational AIM buddy info window. And I had a great time. And it really kept people from getting mad at me. Again, huge strategy to remain a neutral party by default, because I probably would play like the clergy card if somebody was like trying to wrap me up in the drama. But my entire point was that instead of to like side with the judgmental folks, if that we were like having an intense meeting and people were like crying and saying we needed to be more classy, then I would like, last minute throw a curveball, dig a quote from my moleskin about, he who cast the first stone, and make it a very convenient narrative to my particular friend group, as every good clergy member does. Like, I'm a monster. Why am I admitting this? Anyway, guys. Wait, the last thing I have to say about the weekend that just like made me roll over. I can't. Is the one of my friends, I like never want to say people's names because I don't know if you guys want me to talk about you. Except I said Claire ate the muffins. Sorry, girl. Thanks for taking me to the airport last weekend. One of my friends is so sweet and so like positive and upbeat. She's like everyone's token like cheerleader of a friend. She's my best friend in the entire world, and she's such a doll. And she has this funny thing where she'll mess up like figures of speech, but she like knows it. It's always been like such an entertaining thing. And she was looking back at her she was looking back at her Facebook album titles, which I encourage everybody to do. Please, for the love of God, send me your best, most inappropriate, weirdest ones to podcast@BeThereIn5.com. Would love to hear it. Would love to hear your sorority stories, sorority emails, anything funny you ever want to send that you think shareable, please send to me. You get a kick out of this stuff. One of her Facebook album titles was still very much alive and kicking. It was for Halloween photos that she was sharing. And, because a briefing's cool and you want to be like hip, you don't want to have the album say exactly what it is. She decided to name the album Ween Pics, which if for the objective eye, literally sounds like wiener pics, which, nobody really calls that a ween, but the concept of like this sweet, like perfect human, just like, an employer searching through your profile and it's just like, so-and-so accomplished. Look at all the stuff I did. Here's some ween pics. I just I can't. I love that that's been there for 10 years. I'm obsessed with all these things we all didn't know we were doing. I know I have so many of them, I'm sure. It's just like, you have a lot of growing to do through your own sense of humor and through the way you display things online. And, the inside jokes are so hard to pin down and so hard to, understand out of context. But anyways, good times all around. Kate from the Beyond. They say Florida's one hell of a drug. And after doing drugs in Florida last year, I'm just kidding. I mean, legal gummies. But, after a gummy and trip to Florida with some sorority sisters, is it possible that one felt inspired to confess to me, who was not Claire, that she actually was the one that ate the muffins? And did I cover my ears and go, la, 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 la? I simply have no interest in the truth. I have no interest in the truth. And it is important to me and for this podcast lore that it will go down in history that it was Claire that ate the muffins. And I simply can't live in an alternate reality. And it's very funny that she actually didn't. And it's very funny to me that is how people first and foremost identify her and have for the past several years. And I love her for not caring and thinking it's funny because I was so convinced she ate the muffins. But yeah, she actually didn't eat the muffins. But how nice of me as a friend, as a big, to re-air that episode and breathe new life back into these rumors. The next two, I won't come back from the beyond. I'll just let these two play. One is Spooky Snorkel. One is Wicked Witch of the Midwest, and you'll know the transition because a voicemail comes on. And these are two that I really liked, but I feel like, I don't know. Part of like why I'm interested in doing this is I think there's a disconnect between the episodes I like and the episodes that like tend to be popular. And Spooky Snorkel was definitely not a big one. But I really like one of my, if I'm being honest, one of my favorite things to talk about in the fall that I bring up at like dinner parties, house parties at restaurants and small groups is ghost fashions. I'm very interested in ghost fashions. And I think I should think about that here in addition to, I don't know, some other like Halloween trick-or-treating millennial based lore. And yeah, then the other ones, Beth Stern Civ, about the origin of witches, which I just think is important information for us to carry forward. And I love fun facts, and I feel like it's just great fun fact material for you to take with you this weekend as you make small talk with other parents. Enjoy. A topic that I'm personally obsessed with that I've researched over the years, but it's hard to kind of find concrete reasons as to why, is that millennials, I feel like one of our traits is being obsessed with fall. I don't know if my love for fall is baked in nostalgia, but like I honestly loved it while it was going on and looked forward to it while it was going on. And it was, just like the charm and coziness and comfort of back to school season and back to school clothes. Let's be honest, I just was stoked for new clothes. We used to shop for back to school clothes a lot in the summer, but then my mom would withhold them and we couldn't wear them until school started. And it was torture. I remember I got the fiercest set of Keds with these kind of like curly Q corkscrew laces that you didn't have to tie. They would just kind of like corkscrew it together. I wanted to wear them so bad in August and just be fresh to death for the rest of summer, but I couldn't wear them till school. But honestly, it was genius because then I looked forward to the school year starting. But whether it's back to school, the crisp air, the leaves falling, the sense of calm, the gorgeous foliage brings me, the relief that the heat of summer's over and we're moving into cooler temperatures, in the 90s now it's like still pretty much hot everywhere, but we're getting closer here in Chicago. I love the smell of I was going to say campfire, but in the suburbs, it wasn't really a campfire as much as it was wood-burning fireplaces, maybe somebody cooking something off into the distance. It kind of smelled like burning leaves, which I don't think anybody was doing that. But for some reason, all of the smells that, represent fall, not only do they really ignite my hay fever, which is tough stuff, they also just makes me feel at ease and like the world is a simpler place. And I think part of that is like the feeling of going rogue as a child and just like pillowcase in hand, trick-or-treating, no parents allowed, and doing whatever we wanted in the neighborhood. And it was like so dark out and it still felt safe. And I cannot imagine doing that now. But from a pretty young age, I feel like we trick-or-treated without parents, which is so interesting. But it was so much fun and you got so much candy. And I don't know about your neighborhood or your lore from your area. I feel like we all probably have the exact same anecdote. Kind of like how we all universally heard that Marilyn Manson got his, bottom rib out so he could S his own D. I don't know where this folklore comes from. But, like, why did we think that if somebody gave you an apple, it would have a razor blade in it? Like, in Short Pump, Virginia, who was putting razor blades in apples? Like, that wasn't real. I feel like you're more likely to find a cartoon worm, but we were told to, like, never accept produce. And I feel like baked goods are of any kind. But also, like, if somebody wants to kill you or hurt you, they wouldn't put a razor blade in an apple. They'd put, like, a lethal dose of something in it. So I'm not really sure where that came from. Who like, would get satisfaction out of, like, giving an adolescent a shocking, inconvenient, yet not life-altering cut on the mouth? It's just weird. But I don't know. It's like, it was kind of fun because growing up in the same place, you kind of memorize who had the good candy, the rich people that would give out full-size things. I knew the houses that would pass out raisins. What a boner killer. What are you doing? That's the spookiest thing of all. Healthy snacks on Halloween. No, thank you. And I would go home, basically go through my stuff, take out all of the Almond Joys, Heath's bars and Mounds and like give them to Kelly because she likes coconut, but also she was allergic to almonds. So that probably wasn't wise of me. I had a light tree nut allergy as well. Not like legumes, which are peanuts, very different things. I never died, but they just made my mouth itchy. Much like an apple full of razor blades. Anyway, I'm not really into the scary stuff. I'm not into the ghouls hanging from trees. I don't like someone in a coffin popping out at me. I don't like tombstones and graveyards and like dead people stuff. I think there's like I don't really understand when we went from like werewolf, bar mitzvah, spooky, scary, weird reference if you study rock, but like, we went from like jack-o'-lanterns to like children in cages hanging from a tree, and that actually exists in my neighborhood. There are people that go way too far, and they have so much novelty, murdercore, tchotchkes and decor. I'm like, should we? I don't know. All I'm saying is that the address is on my list to do a scan at some point because I just have trouble understanding like why you would have a gory collection of stuff and not be a weird person. I'm sorry if you do. I can't. I'm not trying to yuck your yum, but maybe I'm honestly trying to yuck your yuck. And again, this is not casual scary stuff. I get it, like a tombstone here, a coffin here. I need to share a picture with you what I'm talking about, because in my neighborhood, people are going nuts. And it's like, I saw one yesterday walking Teddy, and it was like a cursed playground. And it was like dismembered, like statues of children, like kind of hanging weirdly off a seesaw as if they had just perished. And I'm like, this is, okay, I'm sorry. I feel like this is maybe should get you on a list somewhere. I don't like this. Anyway, maybe I'm no fun. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I was researching why millennials were so obsessed with fall. Some of the reasons cited are like, apparently like researchers suggest that it's partially about control. And this is very one in the millennial. In a world where millennials face financial crisis, skyrocketing student debt, and unstable housing markets, the predictability of seasonal changes offers comfort. Fall represents change without chaos, something that many millennials desperately crave. And I thought, what an interesting psychoanalysis. That would not have been top of mind for me, but sure. But apparently, due to kind of this commercialization of Halloween that happened over the years, millennials also enjoy and appreciate Halloween because we didn't really have to grow out of it. I think, I don't know the origins of trick-or-treating in America, and honestly, I could look it up right now, and that's something I'm like trying really hard not to do because I love fun facts, but I'll get way too off track. I think the crux, the perhaps defining contributor to a millennial obsession with Halloween and autumn, where our interest in sustained joy was sparked in this holiday, I believe, starts with the Black Flame Candle, which is, of course, a reference to perhaps the Millennial movie, Hocus Pocus. I wrote about this in my book in the context of the spooky things we do at sleepovers and just, being interested in general witchcraft. Can I read from my own book? Because that's so annoying. Because I don't remember what I said. The other thing that stands out to me about slumber parties is how weird it was for minors to majorly dabble in paranormal activity or supernatural rituals for kicks. I don't know why anyone is surprised that a generation of young women like things like astrology, crystals, the secret, and manifestation, because we were raised by the guidance of Ouija boards, origami fortune tellers, MASH, and magic 8-balls after spending afternoons at Natural Wonders. Many of the chants and rituals and games we played at slumber parties were also downright creepy. While most people, including me, blame diet culture for their body image issues, I also blame how light as a feather, stiff as a board didn't seem to work well on tall gals with bigger bones than everyone else. In retrospect, this exercise looked like a high-key pagan levitation ritual, and even though I hated the inadvertent body shaming, I will say I'm here for the preteen witch vibes. I also often think about the lyrics to the weird chants or hand-slapping games we did of the Miss Mary Mac persuasion that started out wholesome but then had an edgy agenda, like Miss Susie had a steamboat. It was basically an excuse to say curse words without saying the full word. Miss Susie had a steamboat. The steamboat had a bell. Miss Susie went to heaven. The steamboat went to hello, operator. Give me number 9. So on and so forth. Songs like that, or There's a Place on Mars where the women smoke cigars and the men wear bikinis and the children drink martinis, are interesting to revisit lyrically. My hypothesis is we felt comfortable with creepy chanting in a hocus-pocus forward America. A culture that was so pervasive, if you head to your nearest apple cider donut provider in autumn, you can find a millennial wearing a t-shirt that reads "Amuck, amuck, amuck" to this day. I'm convinced we liked Hocus Pocus so much because it was the only Disney movie that used the word virgin, and hearing it in a context outside of Marriott Church was a real thrill. It added a sexiness to the lore of the Black Flame Candle that I carried into adulthood when I started lusting after $60 black diptyque candles to basically light money on fire. I have one behind me. A black diptyque candle. Shout out to Lindsay Davidson who sent that to me. It's in the scent Bays, the kind of ubiquitous blogger one. I think that means berries or something. In French. In France. Ever heard of it? Hocus Pocus may be why we felt comfortable in groups chanting creepily or performing hand-slapping rituals, but since there were more than 3 of us, it was more like the makings of an amateur choir that specialized in black magic. As if there was a Sanderson Sister Act 2, upon nightfall, we too would get back in the habit and perform weird rituals that made Bloody Mary or the Candyman as likely to be in attendance at a classmate's birthday party as someone named Jessica or Amanda. It was as terrifying as it was awesome. I still love that sentence, and I love the portmanteau of Sanderson Sister Act 2, where I'm talking about doing witchy rituals like a Sanderson sister, but then saying in large numbers to be chanting it was like a spooky choir. So I bring in critically underrated film Sister Act and its amazing sequel, Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, to call it Sanderson Sister Act 2, and then talk about being back in the habit by nightfall, and then saying that the Bloody Mary or the Candyman was likely to be at the party, was likely to be in attendance as a friend named Jessica or Amanda. I mean, that whole section just excites me to my core, and I remember having a lot of fun writing it. But anyway, I then go into concentrate on what I'm saying. People are dying, children are crying, concentrate. Because the entire goal of that game was you at the end would like imagine yourself falling off a cliff. And the first thing that came to mind was like how you would die. Like, why were we doing that? But also then we would do the classic crack an egg on your head, let the yolk run down, which was like a spa-like experience at sleepovers. But then it would escalate to stab a knife in your back, let the blood run down, or like spiders crawling up your spine. And then I talk about quack diddlioso, quack, 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 senorita, rita, 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 and how some places it was called Stella Ella Ola, or it would be coastal, or it would be location specific. Like in the Northeast, some listeners said they would say senorita, your mom smells like pizza, or San Diego, they'd say San Diego, ego, 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 ego. But quack diddlioso was a thrill because it was kind of like an elevated duck, duck, goose, where you do a waterfall hand slap and you go, Anna, like quack diddlioso, quack, quack, quack. And at the end you go, Anna, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the person who was 10, like if you slapped their hand, they were out. But if they pulled their hand away fast enough, I think they were safe or something like that. But anyways, I just love that millennial folklore. And I wanted to talk about it in the book because I said, I wish these sweet and or spooky moments would be more associated with our legacy as millennials because I didn't just learn them at sleepovers. They usually started in places where girls from different schools and backgrounds would convene and exchange information. I learned most of the hand games and chants at places like YMCA day camps, community after-school programs, and Girl Scouts. Most older millennials didn't have childhoods that were technologically interconnected, and I think that this was an essential part of exchanging our own form of folklore. Honestly, when I think about some of the darker stuff we were up to, it's a wonder we haven't all gotten together by now and put a mild hex on some of these news outlets that feed into millennial stereotypes, given our witchy ways. Maybe something to keep in mind for the future as we creep toward financial doom we aren't responsible for. If the Up All Night Club is good for anything, it's to prepare for when we ride at dawn. You bring the witches and wizards, I'll bring the bead lizards. Don't you love when an author reads and then laughs at her own work? Oh, I'm just kidding. The rest of the chapter is about now and then. Anyways, this is from my book, One in a Millennial, New York Times bestseller, not to brag, in the chapter called Back in the Daybed. I was looking at some research I had found over the years because it's like the book I would try to write as much as I could from memory. Then I would go back and be like, did anybody else experience that and see if I could find articles or information that confirmed that other people did these things. And then if it seemed to be niche to my experience, I'd take it out. Anyway, I was able to find like examples of people talking all over the place about playing these games at sleepovers. And this is an article from bus.com from 2021 that says, while slumber party music, etiquette, food, and sleepwear may change over the decades, the emotions do not. Confronting fear, especially of the supernatural, is an adolescent rite of passage. Psychologists refer to these ages between 9 and 12 as the Robinson ages, the awkward liminal stage when children crave fear and danger. This testing period ripens our imagination with creative storytelling and risky dares that heighten a child's sense of identity. And let's face it, it's far easier to stare at mere ghosts while we have the support of our friends. I thought that was so interesting. The Robinson ages, the liminal stage when children crave fear and danger. Fascinating. And then there's a bunch of research I was doing at the time about seances, because I was like, why were we obsessed with talking to the dead? For folklorists such as Elizabeth Tucker, these occult activities are more than mere games. They rise to the level of ritual. In discussing the levitation game Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board, Tucker writes, as in many rituals, the order of events must be faithfully maintained, the tone must be solemn, the outcome is expected to be something almost miraculous. But rather than simply recording these rituals, folklorists have tried to answer the most puzzling question. Why do young girls so commonly engage in occult activities at slumber parties? Another important connection for somebody between slumber party games and traditional puberty rituals is their dependence on rhythmic and collaborative actions that may transport a cohort of friends into a state of trance. For example, both Bloody Mary and Light as a Feather, Stiff as a Board require words to be chanted repeatedly. Even the rhythmic spiral drawing used in math may have a transformative effect on the players. And there is something about like chanting and kind of being in a trance, or like, remember, did you guys ever try to hypnotize each other? It's so interesting to think back on because it was almost like when night fell and parents were there and it was just us left to our own devices and imaginations, you would almost transport and believe you like lived in an alternate world and where magic could happen and people could be levitated and Bloody Mary would appear in the mirror. And I don't know, it's just so interesting to think about like your parents or whoever's parents being upstairs being like, oh, so cute, a sleepover. The girls are probably doing cartwheels and talking about boys as girls do. But like, no, sorry. We were summoning the dead. Like, this is why millennial women are amazing. People have always tried to reduce us, and we've never been collapsible to our own stereotypes. Another thing I found while going back through my research that's interesting is that in terms of the origin of the seance, beyond Now and Then, Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I think Hillary from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air tried to contact her ex, like her fiance, her dead ex-fiance in a Halloween episode. Now and Then famously would go in the attic, and their seance was for Dear Johnny, who we then find out, spoiler alert, is the son of Crazy Pete, and that's why he only comes out at night. He's not a person to be feared. He's not a weirdo or a predator. He's a person that can't face himself or any people during the day, because he was at a bar when his son and wife were murdered, who was Dear Johnny, 25 years ago. I know. So sad. I love that trope about a misunderstood neighborhood man, kind of like the dude in Home Alone. I was very scared of grumpy elderly neighborhood men that like hung out in the driveway and stared at the youths while I was growing up. But another fun seance fact I learned related to Crazy Pete being at a bar and alcohol is that AA founder, Alcoholics Anonymous founder Bill Wilson, had a thing for spooky things in life. He had a room in his house dedicated to the paranormal and mystical, which he called the spook room. He once claimed that in this room and the contact he made with spirits there helped him get over his alcoholism. One of the spirits he claimed to have chatted with was a 15th century monk named Boniface. Wilson claimed in his autobiography that Boniface and the other spirits he contacted via the Ouija board were responsible for creating his AA world-famous 12 steps. Isn't that an interesting fun fact? Wow. Another interesting fun fact about Now and Then. So you know how I often talk about how much I loved Casper, the Friendly Ghost. And I think it informed my later interest in ghost chairs when bloggers started buying acrylic furniture. Devin Sawa played Casper. What a 90s mega hottie. And he was cast as Roberta's love interest because Christina Ricci, who starred with him in Casper, recommended it for Now and Then. And the fun fact is that his character Scott's big romantic line before he kisses Roberta in Now and Then is, "Can I kiss you?" And it's intended to echo his famous pre-kiss line from Casper, "Can I kiss you?" Isn't that such fun 90s TV intertwining movie lore? I'm obsessed. But anyway, you guys, why was I getting into that? Oh, I guess I just wanted to talk about doing witchy and oracle or occult-like things at sleepovers, because that was really the only time I dabbled in the spooky. That's the only time I, as a child, snorkeled in the spooky. But today we're going to be doing that with ghost stories that you guys submitted. Mostly because I wanted you to tell me what they were wearing. And I don't know if all of you did, and I don't know if I made that clear. Because I have this obsession with like ghosts and how they present themselves sparingly and specifically, and only some people have seen them, but others not. And I'm like, wouldn't it be good if like everyone kind of saw one so we would at least achieve consensus that they were real? But also as a person, like I choose to believe people that share these like, why would you make that up? That's such a weird thing to make up. I know that a lot of people allegedly are like asleep or having a lucid dream and maybe don't realize it. But I also believe that people know the difference between being awake and asleep. And like, you know, we don't go around telling stories about our dreams and act like they're real for the most part. Anyways, but one of the things I notice about ghost stories that people just tell you in life is they're like always wearing old-timey garb. And I just really think that ghosts should be more modern because people have died recently. So like, is there not a statute of limitations? Is there like a time period of like they have to have died on like so long ago to like reappear in the mortal realm? Or do we just decide that we'd prefer to be cozy once we get there and, you know, the afterlife only is like sponsored by Hill House Home? Like, I don't know. I always think about that movie, Susie Q. She was a ghost, right? She died in a car accident on like prom night. So her ghost is in her prom outfit. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. If you would be like wearing the outfit you passed in or were wearing around that time. But then I'm like, okay, well, if a 16-year-old tragically died in the 90s, if they were anything like me, they'd haunt you wearing like Paul Frank monkey pajamas. You know, it's not like she in her kerchief and I in my cap. It's like, sick pajamas. Instead of getting haunted by a child ghost like in Are You Afraid of the Dark that said, "I'm cold," I'd much rather be haunted by somebody wearing fresh threads from Hot Topic. I love a Paul Frank monkey pajama. But yeah, I've always wanted to talk about ghost fashions. And what I also think is interesting about ghosts that I heard is that like the reason ghosts can go through walls is because they're roaming your house or that hotel or that whatever historical site. They're roaming it with its original floor plan. So it's like, okay, so are ghosts stuck to a location or are they stuck with a person? And if they're, you know, going between walls and homes that they allegedly haunt, no wonder they sometimes seem like spooky or disoriented or deranged. All they know is their original floor plan, and we millennials, like clowns, knock down all the walls. We are so anti-choppy floor plan. And These poor unfortunate souls probably aren't trying to haunt you. They probably just want some privacy. They probably don't want to run into you. I think the ghosts going through the walls when the original floor plans aren't trying to haunt you because they're mad at you from the afterlife. They probably just don't want to hear the TV while they're eating dinner. And we tragically knocked down every wall in sight for an open concept. And I think we are going to regret this big time. Big time. And I think I'm just obsessed with the idea of like, okay, do you get to pick what you wear in the afterlife? I just think if I were to haunt, I would wear fashions that like haunt me that might surprise somebody to see a ghost wearing, you know? Like if it just something is funny to me about seeing a ghost and being like, are they wearing a sock bun and a knockoff Herve Leger dress? Are those Spanx faux leather leggings and caged heels? Like, the ghosts only come out at night, but they're still wearing day-to-night fashion? That's fascinating. Caged heels were so uncomfortable, so strappy. Your skin would swell when you were at the club, and then it would kind of pop out almost like the straps were scoring bread. Such a weird shoe. It was kind of an extension of the gladiator, an elevated gladiator sandal. I'm curious for you guys to tell me what you'd wear as a ghost to haunt people. Because a lot of my clothes are fast fashion, and fast fashion is known for the paper-thin layers, so my stuff from Zara is not going to hold up. You don't want your ghost friends being like, why are those layers so thin? Like, I'm a ghost, and I can see through that. That would be humiliating. But anyway, you guys, I want more modern ghost wear. I'm hoping we'll hear from a ghost in a tracksuit or some sort of athleisure, because that just makes a lot of sense to me to be comfy. And I feel like now we go for more fitted comfort than flowy comfort. Anyway, hoping that we'll not just be seeing people from a bygone era. And if we only hear from people from a bygone era, and I think we do kind of know that ghost canon is that you cannot come back to the restaurant sitting in the corner where you haunt unless it's been like 300 years or something. Who knows? Anyway, you guys.
Hey, Kate. I am calling in from Virginia with a dilemma. My husband and I have been married for almost 6 years now, and we are in our first big impasse, like our first real argument. I mean, we've been together for a really long time, so this is not a cry for help. But it's really about the content of the argument. And Kate, it is about the existence or not of witchcraft. We're at a stalemate, and I am dying to know what your thoughts are on like modern witch culture, witchy vibes. The TLDR is that he's like, no, don't say that. Don't say you're looking for a coven of female friends. Like, don't say you're channeling any intention, because we don't know if it exists or not, and why bring that into your life if it could exist. And I have the exact opposite opinion. If it could exist, why not bring that into your life for positivity? He grew up Catholic, and I have been arguing that a lot of the things that the Catholic Church does are far more witchy than anything I am intending. But I don't know. I mean, running naked through the woods optional. I would love to find a coven down here and have some female friends, text some politicians who are doing some nonsense. Anyway, would just love to know your thoughts. Thanks. Bye.
Ooh, I have thoughts. Thanks for your question. So I have a theory as to why he might think this. But also, I feel like first, I'm curious if you guys are kind of talking about two different things. Like, does your husband understand that, like, witchcraft and witchy vibes kind of runs parallel to, like, cottagecore and other aesthetics from that kind of got more popularized or mainstream during the pandemic that had to do with, like, doing cute things in a forest? I mean, because there was cottagecore, but there's also like fairycore and goblincore and all sorts of things that have to do with like forest nymphs vaguely doing pagan rituals. And it's really not any more serious than adopting a cinnamon cookie butter aesthetic for your makeup in a given week. And in an even lighter sense, you know, I think we all got more interested in not in a serious way, but in a wait for the signal and I'll meet you after dark sort of way, like chic green velvet cloaks, wanting to gather in the forest amongst women simply for community, and we brought the orbs for ambient lighting. No offense to the moon, we don't like overhead lighting. Need orbs. That's like, it's just not that serious. So what I'm wondering is, does your husband think you're talking about Satan core when your version of witchcraft is Evermore? You know what I mean? I think there's a distinction. However, I would argue that witchcraft in general is misunderstood and has been misrepresented and rebranded over time. No, I'm not a witch. I couldn't cast a spell if I tried. I don't know anything about anything. But I did see Wicked twice this week. First of all, it's not that serious. But if we want to get serious, second of all, Well, if your husband grew up in the 90s, I'm going to argue that if he went to Catholic church from 1997 to 2003 or however long the rollout took, there was like a renaissance of anti-witchcraft, anti-occult, anti-magic messaging from the Catholic and evangelical churches to the masses because of what that was massively popular, Harry Potter. I recall witnessing many a spat between parties, whether it's parents and kids, school and kids, school and religious people, grandparents and kids, whatever, about the popularity of Harry Potter and it encouraging like dark magic and black magic and how like kids shouldn't have access to like demonic messaging or something. Like, give me a break. I just wonder if he has memories from that peak like moral panic about magic from the anti-Harry Potter movement, because I'm no Potterhead, hippopotamus, whatever. I can never remember what the fandom's called. It's like one of my biggest pop cultural blind spots. But yeah, that would be my first conjecture. My second one is maybe his Catholic church talked excessively in general about occult practices, not a cult, but OCCULT, which is really just like spirituality through mysticism, magic, so on and so forth. What's interesting, if you look up the origins of like quote unquote witchcraft, how far back do we go? I mean, do we want a history lesson? We'll call it Beth Stern Civ. I didn't like that. So back when Constantine came around in like whatever, 500 CE, AD, whatever you're using these days, 400, 500, he basically turned Christianity from a persecuted religion into like a powerful and widely accepted one. And the goal was to spread to the masses to basically gain socio-political power. The church was the state and the church was the culture at that point, right? I mean, even if they weren't government officials, they were consulted by members of the clergy. The church was heavily involved in urban centers, trade centers, social services, so on and so forth. I gather once Constantine legalized Christianity, the Christianization of Europe was quite aggressive in terms of not only exhibiting like a cultural dominance where Christianity was the socially acceptable faith, but persecuting and othering any faith of those who didn't convert. And if you're trying to build a business, build an enterprise, benefit that bottom line with those mandatory 10% tithes, what are you going to do? Eliminate the competition. And what was the competition at this point in time? Christianity is a monotheistic religion. A lot of parts of Europe had polytheistic, long-term, ancient, pagan spirituality. And every region, I gather, kind of had their own flavor, their own distinction. And the only reason I've come to understand this, I apologize if I misspeak, is understanding more about Celtic pagan rituals and how they were folded into Celtic Christianity. And I read about this at one point because I find Celtic history fascinating in that it was a society that really revered women. There's a book called Sacred Soul, Sacred Earth. I don't even know if I finished it, but it reminded me before like Celtic regions were, heavily Christianized, the Celts really like held women in high regard. Not only were they equal, they had significant rights and roles that were pretty unusual for the time. They could be priestesses. They could lead ceremonies and rituals. They could own property. They had the right to divorce. They maintained control of the wealth in their marriage. And I'm not like a full woo-woo, divine feminine person because I don't know. I feel like a lot of coaches who coach coaches are now talking a lot about the divine feminine, and I just don't know what's going on. A lot of them are also talking about aliens. Topic for a different day. But I really liked the premise because I'm Irish and I just liked learning about women before my time. And I just thought it was really interesting that they were these highly regarded members of society with incredibly significant roles and rights. And it wasn't until the Christianization of Celtic regions, specifically Roman patriarchal values, where women were removed from religious leadership, their property rights became restricted, they limited their political power, and the entire emphasis became on female submission. And when people tell me the patriarchy doesn't exist, they think I'm like a woke snowflake. And I'm like, no, I'm reading books about the biblical patriarchy, and early Christianity systematically excluded women from religious authority to maintain control throughout history. Governments have used religious justification to control women in countless ways, whether it's their reproductive system, marriage regulations, property rights, pay discrimination, modesty laws, educational barriers, or voting restrictions. So there could not be more historical examples of controls designed for the subordination of women that use religious language and justification to serve an economic and political power structure. But people try to gaslight you and say, what are you talking about? That's the liberal feminist agenda, making shit up. No, it's not. Read a book. Any other book besides the Bible, but even the Bible too, it says it right there. What was I saying? The Catholic Church isn't exactly known for being like the most modern, hip, and up to date. Like I think a lot of ancient practices and beliefs are like super embedded into the way they do things. I mean, what a Captain Obvious statement. The Catholic Church seems a little change averse, you think? But even like in comparison, you know, you go to an evangelical mega church and it's like the world's most wholesome rave. Catholic Church never changes. Anyway, my loose, I don't know if it's a theory or subjective understanding of why even modern Catholic churches might speak out against occult practices or witchcraft as if they're still a modern threat, making you ask like, well, is this like real? Should we really be afraid of it? I actually think that witchcraft was never actually like the dark arts. I think it was like folk magic, medicinal healing, you know, pagan spirituality that many regions, many cultures had for thousands of years because they were trying to explain the unexplainable like any religion is trying to do. And when Christianity was conquering these regions and trying to do mass conversions, the only way to like grow and control and maintain power if people won't convert is to other them, is to persecute them, is to do what the Catholic Church did spreading throughout Europe post-Constantine, which is destroy pagan temples and sacred sites, building churches on them, forcing baptisms, military campaigns. There's a lot of varying information out there. I mean, like you have two options when you want to talk people out of something and to join your team in an MLM and in life. So one, you dismiss, two, you demonize. And I think that like what started as a dismissal of pagan rituals and traditions, like slowly became more and more conflated with like demonology. Like anything, it operates on a spectrum, right? And this is what we talk about when we, the Venn diagram of high control groups, cults, churches, MLM, so on and so forth. It's like, it probably didn't start out that serious, but it's a slippery slope. I like to think of the early sales pitch for Christianity being pretty similar to an MLM. Like, imagine you're a pagan witch and you get called into, you know, somebody's office. Hey, pagan witch, do you want to hear about an amazing new opportunity? Do you want to become your own spiritual boss? You got to spend money to make money, baby. 10% of your income, give it to the Catholic Church. The returns will be bestowed upon you in blessings. All you have to do is become a member of the fastest growing religion in the Roman Empire. We've got Constantine in our upline, and this religion all started from one man who had 12 apostles who got 12 apostles, and their 12 apostles got the names and emails of 12 apostles, and now it's one of the biggest religions in the world. Or do you want to be a peasant on the outside of the empire, or do you want to be the empire? It's kind of like, sheesh, it's an intense sales pitch. I'm just a lady out here trying to enjoy nature, grow herbs for its medicinal properties. And then little did they know, in a few hundred years, they'd be burning all the witches, even if you aren't one. Tragic. By the time the medieval period came around, 1200 to 1500, the Catholic Church formally declared witchcraft heretical. And then a big turning point, I gather, for like the witch hunts was that book that came out in the late 1400s that was kind of a crock, but it got revived in the Renaissance. The text that was used to define the criteria for like the witch hunts that occurred in Europe and in colonial America all like stemmed from this book that was so absurd. Even the church denounced it a few years in, but at one point it outsold the Bible. Let me tell you what it was called, so I'm not speaking out of turn. Yeah, if you want to look this up, it's called the Malleus Maleficarum. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it translates to Hammer of Witches. It was written by a German Catholic clergyman named Heinrich Kramer in 1486. The book was condemned by top theologians of the Inquisition for recommending illegal procedures and for being inconsistent with Roman Catholic doctrines of demonology. The book calls sorcery heresy, which was a crime at the time, and recommends that secular courts prosecute it as such. It suggests torture to get confessions and death as the only certain way to end the evils of witchcraft. When it was published, heretics were often sentenced to be burned at the stake. The Malleus suggested the same for witches. Despite, or perhaps because of, being condemned by some members of the church, the Malleus was very popular. The book was later revived by royal courts during the Renaissance and contributed to the increasingly brutal prosecution of witchcraft during the 16th and 17th centuries. So Kramer, the author, wrote this book following his expulsion from Innsbruck by the local bishop due to charges of illegal behavior against Kramer himself because of Kramer's obsession with the sexual habits of one of the accused, Helena Schuberin, which led the other tribunal members to suspend the trial. And when you look up more about Helena, she was like a married woman that people thought was too independent. She was super outspoken. She wouldn't attend his sermons and like told her friends he was a bad monk. And then he brought about witchcraft charges upon her because like after she told all of her friends not to attend his sermons. Even though she was acquitted, he wrote this book 2 years later. Like it was like his revenge. And like people think it was basically what we refer to today as like an incel's manifesto, where he was like obsessed with this sexually active, outspoken, independent woman who didn't like him and who denounced his teachings and got her friends to not attend his sermons. And he was still so mad 2 years later. He wrote this book of shit he made up in his head that was used to harass and hunt innocent victims of the witch trials for hundreds of years later. Rage. Hope you enjoyed that edition of Beth Dern Civ. A highly subjective and selective recounting not of history, but of Wikipedia pages I read late at night when I can't sleep. But there's still a lot to be learned. A lot of parallels here. Misogyny is highly contagious. The labeling, stereotyping, demonizing of women's behavior as a tool of oppression is unfortunately nothing new. Anyway, to the caller, I think I'm a lot like you in that I'm a seeker, not a settler. Like I will seek and I'm deeply curious, and I don't see any harm in understanding what other people believe. I don't really think that faith in something means a mandatory invalidation of everything outside of your faith, and that you're the only truth and the only right one, and that everyone else must be idiots or compromising their salvation, so on and so forth. Like, I think that mentality largely serves the institution and creates an us versus them mentality that is a tale as old as time, where you're discouraged from even looking outside of what you know. You're discouraged from pushing back on authority. You're discouraged from asking questions. But I think that faith is not the absence of doubt, but faith is overcoming doubt and still believing it anyway, because doubt is very natural. And I think it's in our best interest to always be critically thinking about where we spend our time, our wine, our spirit, our trust, of course. But also, to me, it's just not that big of a deal to be like, to research something, to understand what they believe in. And probably to you too, like your husband's like, he has like an immediate reaction to like, no, we can't. Whereas like, if you don't like take it so seriously, you're not like as intimidated by it. You're just trying to understand something else. And like, why is that such a problem? But that's also a reason why I should probably be careful, because there are probably a lot of people out there thinking that I am a witch. For even trying to historically contextualize witchcraft. I don't practice anything related, except occasionally indulging in what TikTok astrologers say is going to happen on a particular date if it like serves my own agenda. And obviously sleepover rituals like light as a feather, stiff as a board. Although I say that, but I feel like maybe, I don't know, the rumor would spice up my image. Wicked Witch of the Midwest? The Wicked Witch of the Midwest says things like "Geez, oh Pete's," and is worried about getting arrested for putting Sprite in a water cup, She's not wicked as much as she's like wickedly talented, like Adele Dazeem, but I don't know. Maybe I'll lean into the moniker just to add a cool factor. I do wear a lot of black. Okay, this is the last thing I'm going to say about witches. Do you know that the origin of the pointy hat and broom is because... So the stereotypical witch hat emerged in the 16 and 1700s, and it was associated with alewives, so women who brewed or sold ale. And alewives wore tall hats to stand out in crowds and had cauldrons because they were brewers, and they used broomsticks as their trade signs. And they also had cats because they would control the mice in the grain. So these symbols became witch stereotypes because people were suspect of female brewers, not only because male brewers wanted to eliminate female competition. And since like witch accusations were a way to women, a lot of male brewers would use witch accusations to drive women out of the trade of being alewives. And women brewers were often like independent and successful, and oftentimes would take on that trade if they were like widows or unmarried. And that would make people even more suspicious, combined with their knowledge of herbs and fermentation and the fact that they gathered in groups and had economic independence, and that they had these brooms and tall hats to stand out above men and had cauldrons to brew. Like, that is what created the modern witch stereotype. They weren't evil sorceresses and devil worshippers. They were entrepreneurs, CEOs. They were boss babing too far away from the Son of God and not fulfilling their divine role as wives and mothers and submissive second-class citizens of society. They were small business owners. Can you believe it? We never stood a chance. I believe in a woman's right to choose, and I believe in a woman's right to brew then and now. And this is why on the sacred week that Wicked has come out, the live-action film following a long 20 years since the musical's debut, we're not just holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity in the context of Elphaba. We're holding space for the progress women have had to make as we progress and regress throughout the years, bobbing and weaving and ebbing and flowing as we try to meander through this complicated systemic web of the patriarchy. To defy gravity isn't so much to literally fly. To make us limited as is inherent to society as 9.8 meters per second squared is to the earth. Like these things that pull us down, these systems that are embedded that keep us from ascending. So yeah, if you care to find me, look toward the Midwestern sky. As someone told me lately, everyone deserves a chance to die slowly as they listen to this podcast. Where I got a question about witches 35 minutes ago. How do we get here? Thank you for calling. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed Ween clips. I had fun putting it together. Kind of random, but yeah, let me know what you thought. And if you like, instead of just not putting out episodes on off weeks, if you like this sort of thing. Because like, yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's me because I've just said so much information over the years, like it leaves my brain, or if it feels redundant. But it kind of, especially stuff from like 2019, it kind of felt like the first time listening to it, even though like a lot of my references and jokes and dumb shit I say is like the exact same. But I guess that's good to know I'm consistent in some ways. What a journey with audio quality though. And just like my vocal tone, and I don't know, there's a lot there. And I hear I do think it's interesting, the positioning of fall relative to like what I was worried about at the time, and how like when things are more political or tense, I'll go like more historical context, and I don't know. But yeah, there's some director's cuts of episodes I want to do that are either my favorite, have like follow up that I could share, that like were launching points for the podcast, even though they're kind of like random. I've thought about like wanting to revisit Childless Millennial too, just to like give my thoughts on it, though I don't know that I'm ready for that. But like I think Bath and Body Jerks or Visco Girl Wash Your Face would be fun. There's an interesting story behind what was happening the day I did What Would Jesus Brew, which actually maybe I'm burning all the witches, even if you aren't one. Just gals out here trying to, sell loaded teas for an undercover MLM. Like, well, what did I say earlier? I support a woman's right to brew? Apparently not. What a monster. But like, yeah, whether it's like Mormon mommy bloggers or some of the well-known deep dives, or I don't know. I just want to like also re-air Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's 10 because that episode's so funny to me. But yeah, we shall see, gang. But if you liked this, let me know. Again, happy Halloween. Not my favorite holiday, but I'm going to try to see if I can't finagle another 3-person costume because my mom's here. And last year we were the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And I feel like I want to find another easy costume for us to wear while trick-or-treating. Because I made this really elaborate CTA, like Chicago Transit Authority, CD bus for Teddy, because he loves a CD bus. And he loves playing with it, even though he likes to keep reminding me the wheels don't turn. I'm like, sorry, Teddy, the lights do work. But yeah, oversight on my part. Sorry about the wheels. I showed it on Instagram. It was literally the cutest thing ever. It brought me back to life. I had so much fun making it. To quote Danny Tanner, making Stephanie's dance costume, I felt like Liberace's dad. If, Teddy is to Cars's, Liberace is to Sequins. But yeah, so I got to go finagle a costume. I got to go carve a pumpkin. Since I'm in my hobbies era, I might try to, I don't know, do you guys use stencils? I might try to do something interesting, or maybe I'll just do a carve for Teddy. Who knows? But thanks for listening, you guys. Love you. As always, let me know your thoughts and I'll let you know mine. I'll be there in 5, I swear.